Okay, so communication competence really talks about the functionality of communication behaviors, all right? And to do that, what we're looking at is how do you achieve your needs for all kinds of needs that you might have, and how do you achieve your goals for any kind of goals that you have through the use of communication, as communication being your strategy for achievement, all right? So I want to start with what are called as instrumental, relational, and self-presentation. Now, we have to break everything down in parts, but keep in mind that everything is so interconnected. Communication is not just one element. There's no way that we can just look at anything in communication studies singly. We have to look at it in mass or in context or with all the contributing elements for it, all right? So let's start off by looking at what we mean by instrumental needs. And if you're following along in your textbook, I am on actually 24, page 24. So on page 24, 23, 24, what I want you to understand is that instrumental needs are those needs where communication serves as the actual instrument, all right, sort of a tool. Okay? And our instrumental needs are going to be any of those things that enable us to have a conversation, such as picking up a phone and utilizing a telephone, or picking up your computer and going through your computer, etc. When we communicate to achieve our relational goals, that means that we are maintaining those relationships. And that's not easy. Maintaining relationships is a lot of work. Being married for 47 years, you can really get the feel of it. For me, I mean, it was not always easy. And for those of you who have been married or are married, you know it's a lot of work. And the honeymoon ends pretty darn fast. So what you do then to keep the excitement or the marriage or the relationship, if it's romantic, is very important. But that's also for family relationships. How do you define the relationship with your family? And how do you maintain that? If you have children, especially if you have any children in middle school, how do you maintain a relationship with those kids during a really developmental time of their life? That is very challenging, right? So when we talk about relationship and how we maintain it, there is a terminology phrase that's called DTR, ETR. And this is a conversation that you will have with a person. And it basically stands for determine the relationship. In chapter 5, we're going to go through a model explaining the stages that relationships go through, from your first connection all the way through repairing, possibly dissolution, right? And there's a whole lot of steps in between. Oftentimes, you want to take stock with the other person on what is your relationship? Where is it going? Where has it been? Are we ready to move to the next level or stage? Are you happy with it? Are you offended by it? All right? So for instance, in a workplace relationship, if a work colleague or a supervisor sexually harasses an employee, then a talk determine the relationship, DTR conversation has to take place. And the person who feels victimized has got to set boundaries and say, stop, I do not like that. Or possibly an HR person will have to come in and facilitate a discussion and say, stop, she does not like that, and that is now sexual harassment, right? Or any other number of people who have to come in and have a discussion. So determining the relationship talks are very important. If you've been in a romantic relationship and you talked about moving to the next level, you know it can be very exciting. I remember the day I got engaged, it will be always imprinted in my brain. It was so wonderful. I can't repeat that feeling as wonderful as it was, but I can remember it, right? So those are your turning points. And in relationships, you have turning points. And those turning points can move you forward. It might move you backward. It might move you sideways, right? And those are through conversations. A conversation is what we call the nut, the kernel, the core of all interpersonal communication. Because to have a conversation with somebody, not to or at, but with somebody where you are doing an interchange of information, of attitudes and feelings and thoughts, those elements, then you are able to really get into a deeper, more meaningful relationship. Or say, no, we're going to stop here, and this is how far we're going to go. Or we're going to say, no, I'm going to exit. All of that is a part of determining the relationship. And that's all what we mean by relationship maintenance. So it can be positive conversation, it can be negative, it could be, poor Darius who's playing a basketball game. By the way, you guys cannot play like you did last game. You guys, they had this 10-point lead at the beginning, then it went away, and they didn't get it back until the last 2 minutes or 1 minute of the game. Okay, the heart can't handle that. You guys make me nervous. Okay, but they play. They're streaming. You can always watch them on the streaming station, which is fun. And you'll see him play. He got a lot of minutes. How many minutes? 13. How many points? Isn't it funny? They keep track of their minutes in the game, but not their points. Not me, man. I'd want to know my points, my assists, but that's okay. You're a team player. Okay, so given the relationship, if his coach is yelling at him, all right, there is definitely a superiority relationship. So in some cases, he is talking at Darius or possibly other players, all right? So when we get into relational maintenance, and I want you to jump over to page 28. So scan down to page 28. Because on page 28, it talks about what are known as compliance gaining strategies. These are the strategies that everybody employs to get other people to do what you want them to do. All right? And there's lots of techniques that we use. And I know that each and every one of you, as have I, used one or more of these compliance gaining strategies. Some of you like one or two more than others, right? There might be your go-to approaches. So when you're looking at this page, on page 28, so for instance, offering rewards. And I'm going to use the basketball as my example because I'm a football widow. My husband coached 15 years of high school varsity football. They had a 46-game winning streak in Southern California. I know my football, all right? So I'm going to use sports as my analogy. All right, so offering a reward. The players who are going to start a game are going to be what kind of players? Who are those? Who are the starters? Start the game off the bench. Your star players, but what else? Okay, so the reward for performing well during practice, yes, okay, or previous games, okay, that's a reward. So you're going to be a starter. Is there status in being a starter? Oh yeah, your name is called before anybody else's. Maybe the others aren't even called, all right? If you hustle at practice, if you maintain your grades, if you're in the college or high school, if you do all those things, then there is a reward, and the reward is playing time or being a starter off the bench, okay? So rewards. Coaches use rewards all the time. I use reward. I offered you guys all a reward upstairs. When you were meeting with Abigail, what did I tell you was a reward if you went there for help? Extra credit. Woo! All right, that's a reward. Exactly. So I'm offering that to get you to do that. Then there's also threatening punishment. Let's say there's a practice going on. Actually, let me use baseball for this one. I was the baseball statistician in high school, which is how I met my husband. And we would come home on a bus, from an away game. And I always sat in the front, being very nice and quiet with my little scorebook and not talking or looking any eye contact with anybody. And if we had lost the game, I got off that bus really fast. Okay? Because I didn't want to hear what the coach was going to say. All right? So I would get off the bus, walk off to the side, but invariably, those players were going to run the bases. And they were going to run the bases and keep on running. Even though they had played 9 innings of game, 9 innings, they were tired. They had just been on a bus for a long time. They were hungry, and they were pissed that they had lost a game. Didn't matter. That coach got them out there on the baseball field and made them run. So if they were not doing well in the middle of the game, let's say it's a 7th inning stretch, the coach might go up to them, hey, you guys, look it. You're playing for shits out there. Here's the deal. Do you want to run bases again after the game when we get home? Or right here in front of all your fans? Or do you want to get out there and play like you know how to play? Okay? That's a threat. That's the example of a threat. Now, all of you have used these, haven't you? Yeah, with siblings, with children, with people who work for you, etc. All right, another one is using expertise. And you're going to see me do this one a lot. You guys, I'm old. And, when I made vice president at 42 years old as a woman. I made a senior vice president by the time I was 44, and I broke the glass ceiling to be on an executive management committee. So I'm going to use my expertise and my experience at times as examples, okay? So using expertise to say, look, I've done it. I've walked in your shoes. I bet Tony's done this one. I've got the real world experience. I don't want you to have to make the same, mistakes I made. So listen to my mistakes and learn from my mistakes because I've got the years of experience, the expertise. Right? Very influential with lots of people. And then there's the liking. Oh my gosh. I want everybody to think back to elementary school. Can you think back that far? All right, I can. It's a little hard. And you are sitting at the lunch table and you're looking at the sack of lunch that your mom or your grandmom or somebody packed for you, and you're looking at it and you're going, ham and cheese sandwich? And then you look at your friend sitting next to you, and your friend has got, a yummy peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And you're starting to covet that peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And you go, I'll be your friend forever if you trade sandwiches with me. Okay? Which means I'm going to like you forever if you will change Someone's with you, right? Or you're waiting in line on recess and you want to take cuts. And you go up to a person, hey, will you give me cuts? They go, no. And you go, please come on, I'll be your best friend. Or I'll do something for you, because we're best buddies, aren't we? And we always stick together, okay? That's using the liking strategy. This is also used as teenagers. Then there is the debt. Oh, you owe me. My husband, this is one I'm using still with my husband for 2 years in North Dakota. All right? 2 friggin' cold years in North Dakota, Bismarck. He will never forget it. I will never let him forget it. He will owe me for the rest of our lives. All right? So when I want something and he says, well, Kathy, I don't know. And I'll say, oh, Rick, remember North Dakota. I say nothing else. And he owes me the debt. And he comes to me. All right? And then there is altruism. Now, altruism is a really cool thing. This is a compliance gating strategy that is actually wholesome and nice and is good. And you use this in terms of trying to get people for the greater good, all right, for the good of others, for being selfless instead of selfish, to promote somebody to send money to a campaign, to American Heart Association. I don't know about you guys, but every time I watch the St. Jude's commercials, I just love those little kids. And being a, relatively good Catholic girl, a California Catholic, I want to send, because St. Jude is the saint of all lost causes. So, pulls my heartstrings. Okay, that's altruism. That's really appealing to that. And then there is esteem. Now, esteem is where you build people up. You build people up. And I did that today with Darius. Okay? So I said to Darius, he played, first of all, I took him down. Don't do that to me anymore in the game, right? I want them to play and win all the time, all right? But then I said at the end, but he played well. And then I asked how many minutes he had. That's building up his esteem. That's giving him a platform to feel good. And I want to help him to be inclusive. I used Tony's name, right? I still have to remember all your other names, but Tony I know really well now. And so I used Tony's name. And when I said, Tony, I bet you've used this before, right? That's building up his esteem. It also creates connection between me and the person and the rest of the group. So stay tuned. I'll learn more about you guys, all right? And I'll be bringing you out and building up your esteem too, okay? So those are the things that we talk about when we are looking for instrumental needs that we also use in terms of our relationships. So it's interconnected. You can't look at just one thing at a time. All right, so let's go on to the third one. And the third one is what we call self-presentation. We're going to be talking a lot about this in detail when we look at chapter 2. Self-presentation is your image and your identity. Think of your identity as yourself, internal. How do you see yourself, right? What do you identify with, right? So as I'm a senior citizen, I am very short, I am very energetic, I am a heterosexual woman, et cetera, et cetera. So these are the things that I identify with, okay? But there's also an image, and the image is what you manipulate to project to the outside world. How do you want others to see you, all right? So that's the external. And the image elements are things like, what did you decide to wear today, all right? What did you decide to, your clothes, your earrings, your, identity. So we've got a Gap. Is that a Gap? No, is that a Canada shirt? Wait. Oh, it's Panthers. And what's the can? Oh, Carolina is an R. Okay. Okay. All right. So he is an image. He's projecting an image that he is a fan. Okay. And yours says Hornets. Oh, your thing says Hornets. So you are a Hornets fan, right? All right. Cool. Let's see. Right, no, not today. Okay. She's got a cute little puppy. All right. So her image is that she has a very special dog. All right. And look at these shoes. He's looking rather dapper today. But you notice he has yellow on his shirt. Okay. Show me shirt. Show me shirt. Look at him. And that's Kobe, isn't it? This man is a Kobe fan, being an LA person. Kobe. All right. So that's his image. Those are the things that he wants people to know that he likes and he is a part of. Image is manipulated. An image is designed to put your best foot forward so that you will be perceived by other people in a good way. However, now he's got a Hornets basketball little doodah on right back there, all right? And I'm a Lakers fan, all right? So I'm going to migrate myself over here because I can identify, and my self-image, all right, is that I want to identify with other Lakers, all right, versus the Hornets. Who are the Hornets anyway? I know. Okay? So again, we manipulate. People who still have Trump posters up in their yards. That is an image that they want people to still know that they are in support. Okay? Now, there's all kinds of things that go with that. So let's talk for a moment about the Trump poster. Given that the election's over, we have a winner, and the poster up in a person's yard, that is a statement of what? Support of a party, okay? Very good. But it's also a support of a person, all right? So that support is the image, the presentation that that person wants neighbors and passersby to have, is that that person identifies with a particular group. So you got to be careful what you wear. Our poor Los Angeles streets, my son is a principal of a Catholic school, and they have uniforms. My husband was also a principal of a Catholic high school in LA, and they had uniforms. And the best thing about uniforms is that they do not have any gang color identification. And in Los Angeles, you can be shot for wearing red or blue or a bandana a certain way. So we have to be really conscious and careful of what that means. My daughter did gang prevention in Northern California, and she wore red one time to the job, and her teenagers were saying, "Oh, Ms. Kruska, you can't wear that. You cannot wear that. You could be stupid." My daughter, being the cantankerous person she is, said, "Like hell, I can't wear this," and continued to wear it and put herself in peril and made her mommy crazy. All right. So sometimes you have to make conscious decisions, and sometimes you have to be aware of what could happen as a result. So, all right. There's more in here that you can read. We've got lots of physical needs that have to be met. So if you are hard of hearing or speech impaired or any of those things, there's communication strategies to help you with that. I'm going to wrap up by asking you to read on your own pages 30, 31, and 30, 31 to talk about when we look at communication as a process, and if you looked at Monday's lesson, you'll see that I said that you cannot not communicate. Right? That's coined by Dr. Paul Václavic. And the whole point of that, along with these other elements, that communication is intentional and sometimes unintentional, by the examples I've given you. It can be very conscious, top of mind, or very unconscious or even subconscious. It's definitely irreversible. Once it's out there, all you can do is mitigate, say you're sorry, try and make amends. But once it's said, it's said. It's not repeatable. So I can say that I remember the day that my husband proposed, but I can't repeat that exact moment with that exact person ever again. And the communication is guided by rules and norms. So let's conclude by a term called emphatic communication. There are all kinds of rules and norms associated with how we communicate. And when you are working on your term project, that's what you're going to be focusing on, is how do people communicate from the country that you have selected. And once you know and understand and hopefully respect some elements of how they communicate, which is their emphatic communication, right? Then you are more apt to have a comfortable conversation with people. Emphatic specifically gives you a rule. Okay, so here's an example. All right, I'm walking down the hallway out here, and I happen to see a student that I know. My emphatic norm will be to say, hi, how are you doing? Right? That student's emphatic norm is going to be, and keep on walking. All right? It's very big with males. Very big. How many of you do that? You pass a male, you don't say hi, sometimes you wave, but you just do that. You do that? Yeah. You do that? Yeah. And you said you do sometimes? Yeah, it depends, right? All right, that's emphatic. Now, if I was to say hi to somebody, let's say I was saying hi to Ruben, and now Ruben knows me now. He better know that that's not going to work for me, right? Because you now know I'm an old lady. So what you're going to do is say, hi, Miss Kay. All right. We now have a new norm, a new rule, a new expectation, and he's going to respond appropriate to our new relationship and to who I am. Okay. Every society, every culture has it. All right. Any questions from our students in video land?
No, ma'am.
Okay, good. Anybody else? All right, good. Well, I'm going to turn off now. So goodbye. And